This conference will now be recorded.
Joining us. Just a reminder to everyone that this meeting is being live streamed, audio recording. That mic is on the whole time. For those listening in or watching online, we don't have a video stream for you today. What you get is a view of what our slides or agenda we have up. But hopefully the audio comes through loud and clear for folks online. Today, again, we have a special meeting with our friends from Sixica. And I thought it would be right and appropriate to start with a land acknowledgement. And when I reflect on how fortunate we are to live in this tremendous region and the tremendous bounty that the land gives to all of us, that is the role of Calgary Metropolitan Region Authorities to be stewards of our land, our air, our water, to plan thoughtfully for how we're going to preserve our land assets and develop thoughtfully in an inclusive way that is good for all residents, current and future in the region. So with that personal connection to what reconciliation means to us at this boardroom table, I invite us all to respectfully acknowledge the people as the Siksika or the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, and Kamskapi Pikuni. We also acknowledge the Tsuut'ina Nation, Stoney Nakoda Nations of Bearspaw, Chiniki, Wesley, and the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3, as well as all of those who call the Calgary Metropolitan Region their home. Again, welcome. A couple of housekeeping items before we get into our discussion with Siksika. We're going to just approve our agenda and minutes, and then we'll move into the meeting. I understand there is a desire to amend the agenda before we get.
Yeah, with agreement from everyone else, I'm wondering if we could change the order of item 5 and 6 to move item 6 out of the core item 5. Because I think it's a wholesome discussion, just in case anyone needs to leave at noon. That'd be all right.
And what I might suggest is we move number 5 after number 7, because we've got 2 items in the closed session. So perhaps we move 5 to make 5 the new number 7. We'll back into the open session. Does that work for everyone? Everyone's comfortable with that? Why don't we move have a mover for amending the agenda? Brown, Councilor Hanson, any discussion on that? Anyone opposed to approving that agenda? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you. And approval of minutes. Minutes were circulated as part of the board package a week ago. Does anyone have any changes to minutes from our meeting March 11th?
Move to adopt, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Brown moves that the board approve the minutes of the March 11th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a seconder? Mayor Gondek, thank you. Any discussion? Anyone wishing to oppose to that motion? Seeing none, that carries. Thank you. So with that, we have a gift we'd like to present. I can present that to you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us here. Thank you. Welcome. So why don't we start, Councilor Solway, if you can just a brief introduction, we'll go around the table and then we can get started.
Thank you. Okay, good morning. My name is Susan Solway. So I think after you got 6th grade, right? I'm a council member for Siksika Nation. This is my first term. We've been at it for 2.5 years about. So it's been quite a whirlwind and a journey for myself, a huge learning curve, but I've enjoyed every moment of it. Definitely worthwhile. Thank you all for having us today. We had a good meeting with crew members a couple months back, and we were anticipating this meeting with all of you today. I think just with regards to moving forward, we're very fortunate and very just feel very fortunate to be in the position that we are in with regards to the position that our nation is in with settling the largest land claim history, largest land claim settlement in the history of Canada which was a 1910 settlement recently. So going forward, we are expecting a lot of good things to happen for our community. We're expecting a lot of opportunities to come our way. But again, making sure that we're being diligent and strategic about everything. So they feel good for our participation.
Dames genomen, estou anekdote esnebuka. Du, sitsuka. Sugapi is still not big wings, go to Moginstis. Councillor Ruben Breaker from the Sixga Nation. What I said was, it's really good that you folks are here. Against us. I appreciate the land acknowledgement, the spirit of truth and reconciliation. It's good that we're all at the table to work together. The community walls built. Sitting at this table shows that we're breaking down walls. What Six of God is moving towards is working with this closely. Here, my colleague will explain more some of the details of that settlement. So there's a vision that we're going to pursue to make a reality. It involves this board, from my understanding. So we look forward to further discussions and talks as we move forward. Thank you.
Okay, dames genomen, gusto mo ko pide sa saksinan. Itong to Sixga Pinokuto. Hello, my name is Samuel Crowfoot. My traditional name is Spotted Eagle, and I'm from Sixga, but I currently live in Okoto. So I'm going to over here. This is my first term on council. Prior to that, I was an attorney in the States. From areas of lobbying, criminal family. And it's after 20 years, I decided to return home back to Sixga, back to Canada, just help take care of some things on the horizon for the nation. Since I've been back, it's been a bit of a culture shock, coming back to the United States, back to Canada, and just seeing the progress of the nation and progress of everything. The political landscape, current events have shaped different things, different initiatives and momentums. Truth and reconciliation wasn't a thing when I was starting school, actually here at Mount Royal, but it's a thing now. And one of the things that we're looking for in Sixga moving forward is having real meaning, real progress behind reconciliation. We're not satisfied simply with flags at half-mast and orange t-shirts. We need to implement and execute all of those 94 calls to action whenever we can. And so when I meet with various leaders of government, the city of Strathmore is one of the ones that we're pretty close with. When I meet with various local governments in the province and the federal authorities, we remind them of those 94 calls to action. We don't quiz them on it, but we expect them to know what it means, but know what it says, because we do. And we know the areas that we're looking for meaningful change. So that's one of the things I just want to mention here today is that we're not just, bees and feathers, right? We're a very proud and strong nation with a lot of educated individuals, educated in our traditional ways of knowing, but also in the Western sense of recognition. So we are looking to be looked upon as allies and respected, but we're also looking to cooperate and respect those around us. We're going to have a little bit more visible position in the future, where you're going to see more of us in areas we haven't really seen us. We're applying to be on various boards, applying to have voices in the decision-making circles. So that's the spirit that we're coming with you today. Thank you.
Anne Harding, OP, welcome. And I'm with an Indigenous engagement consultant for the CMRB and happy to just be here for this conversation today.
Good morning, Sean Wozik, Assistant Deputy Minister with the Department of Municipal Affairs, and very much looking forward to the conversation.
Delilah Miller and Marie for Foothills County. Welcome. We're glad you came today. Thank you.
Good morning, Tanya Thorne. I'm the mayor of the town of Okotoks, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation and many more going forward.
Good morning, Loki, Mayor Jeff Janung, Town of Cochrane. Really heartened by your comments this morning. Looking forward to future conversations and traveling a path together that will lead us somewhere to a brighter future for all. It just really feels good to be able to have conversations and connect with you. So thank you for being here this morning.
Hi, my name is Jeff Dolan. I'm the mayor of Chestermere. This is my first term as mayor, so this is quite exciting to see the direction that CMRB is taking. And I've really started to learn a lot with all these experts around the table. Thank you.
He looked at you, he didn't look at me.
He was talking about us, Peter.
He needs to look the other side. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mayor Peter from the city of Airdrie. Obviously, I'm not going to repeat what Mayor John said, but really just throw the sugar.
Welcome. I'm Jyoti Gandhi, Mayor of Calgary. I want to thank you for just being so open in our journey together. You invited me to my very first powwow a couple weekends ago. Certainly helps me understand how close the community is, and how we can build relationships together. Thank you.
Kevin Hansen, I'm councillor at Rockview, Hogan, and it's my second term on council, so there's first term. And really looking forward to collaborating, and we have other First Nations neighbors as well that I've been working with. Still learning, but hopefully awesome good discussion.
I'm Shelley Arpino, Office Manager with CMRB, and I'm here to capture the tip.
Kevin Coffin, Chief Officer of the CMRB, and welcome.
And I'm Greg Clark, I'm board chair of the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board. So today's meeting, I think, is about potential. And I think the comments around taking meaningful action. This board has placed a high priority on reconciliation. It's in our growth plan, which is the mandated document that we have been brought together to create and then implement. And reconciliation is a core part of that. Each of your municipalities, of our 8 board members, I know, are also taking their own steps toward reconciliation. One of the opportunities I think that is presented to us here is to work in a regional way to provide as much commonality as possible to streamline that process. For Siksika and other Indigenous nations in the region, perhaps to have an opportunity, instead of having 8 individual meetings, 8 individual completely similar but slightly different processes, perhaps there's an opportunity to have some commonality there, which I think will help accelerate, but also advance and extend what action you may be able to take. Having said that, there will potentially be some different contexts in different individual municipalities, so I don't want to say it will necessarily do the same thing for everyone. And Siksika, you may feel that you want to do different things with different municipalities as well. So none of this is to prejudge our outcome, but to suggest that there may be some potential here to use the vehicle of the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board to amplify. One of the forms that may take, as we've talked about around this table that we had in our original meeting, is a potential of a memorandum of understanding. What that may look like is to be determined and subject to discussion. A discussion around additions to reserves, support part of the settlement agreement, and what opportunities that may present for Siksika in particular. Over time, I think other nations in our region as well may on a similar path. So for us to understand from Siksika's perspective what that means, what that may look like for you, and then creating a framework for us to move that forward. I think if I was to suggest what today could bring us, that's probably a good start. And having said that, you join us. Go ahead and please introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, Carlin Black Rabbit Counselor. I ran into some traffic on Calf Road, so I apologize. Yeah, so a smart car, I don't know. Managed to stop over, so my apologies.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jenny Gooden, and it's my first term on council.
So with that, perhaps I'll just open the floor up to Suzuka, whoever wishes to go first. Again, we have had some discussions amongst the CMRB. Again, we had a discussion at the board level following that. Having said that, I'll open up to you and wherever you'd like to start.
I'll speak on a little bit of kind of the history and the significance of business and a little bit on the treaty and kind of the situation we find ourselves in. And then I'll hand it off to my colleague to talk. They were both on the negotiating team for the 1910. So they have some of the particulars of that agreement. But I sit on the Treasury Board. I've sat on there for 6 years. And the funding allocations is we are restricted to how the funding agreements, the FTA, the financial transfer agreements, how the government of Canada issued that FTA agreement that hasn't been amended since 1997. That funding agreement only articulates members on the reserve. Back in 97, 96, our reserve had a population of about 3,700. We are up to almost 8,000 today. Out of that 8,000, there's at least 2,500, just under 3,000 within city limits. So that FTA agreement, our members who are living in the city, they don't get to be assisted because in those agreements it said only members of the reserve. So we have a lot of members who they don't have access to housing and different services that are provided back. That's because of that agreement. So how this recent settlement, how it's going to benefit us is we now get the opportunity to purchase land and have it transferred into reserve, the additions to reserve. Recent settlements, and Sam and Sue can speak on that. Recent settlements, we have up close to 150,000 acres that we can convert to reserve. I know the city of Edmonton, they work closely with Enoch First Nation for urban reserve. So once we have 2 properties in the city right now, Sun Park Boulevard, also on 16th Avenue, Center Street, our family services building is there. So those are 2 pilot projects that we could start that process of ATR additions to reserve. We're also looking at different strategy for ATR, part of our new trust agreement, new trust that we developed. And in that strategy, there could be residential land acquired, commercial, business, whatever that strategy is. That's kind of our vision. So that's kind of a background. I just want to make note that almost 1/3 of our people live in city limits of locations, but they don't get the full services, the ones that they want to reach. That's from a funding perspective, as I said, the Treasury. And that's the big obstacle. We get the calls, unfortunately, because of that FTA that hasn't been amended since 1997. They're gone for them. So with that, I'll just leave it to my colleagues and maybe speak on
the 1910 settlement and some of the particulars in there.
All right, thank you, Buck. He took most of my talking points, so if I sound redundant, I apologize. What I want to do is I want to kind of frame the relationship and I guess the nature of what I'm going to speak about is righting historical wrong. Is what I want to talk about, right? We met with one of the reeves of the surrounding counties, and we attended one of their functions, the chief and myself, and she made a comment that she said, "It's really good to see you guys here. We've reached out to 6 of them, and they have not responded or been as friendly back to us. We never understood why." And I had to remind her that a lot of our leadership, a lot of our elders, remember the days before 1951. I'm sure a lot of some of us here do as well. Before 1951, in the Indian Act, we were prohibited from leaving the reserve without permission from the Indian Act. And we had to be back before them. And a lot of our elders, a lot of our people kind of grew up under that regime. And I'm going to use that word on purpose, regime. That type of thinking, that type of institutionalized policy that limits our ability. We're in the process of winning land claims. We've just won the largest land claim in Canadian history. And it's not because we are awesome lawyers and, well, I mean, some of us. It's not because we have, the strategic advantage of who we hire and who we have working for us. It's because we have history on our side. And I do think there's a shift in the way people are looking at First Nations. We won that land claim where approximately half of our land base was taken illegally. And looking back at the historical documents, the ones that we could find, because it's shown and it's mentioned and proven, Canada destroyed historical documents to weaken our claim. When you look at those facts, of course we won, right? And a lot of our leaders remember those things. They remember the shame and they remember the pain. And so they haven't been open as much maybe before in the past as we are now. We won the Castle Mountain land claim. And I'm not going to say, maybe I shouldn't say win, but we found a settlement that was acceptable. We weren't allowed to leave our reserve. And in time that we were bringing to the borders of our reserve, the Banff National Park was treated, thereby denying us of cultural and traditional uses of that land. Now, that's fine. That's all fine and dandy and settled. But now we're hearing about, oh, you need a pass to go into Canada. You don't pay a government to go to your kitchen, right, from your living room, right? And that's how we look at it. And so looking at I guess strengthening our position in terms of consultation, of respect, that's how we're moving forward, right? I almost said chief. Councilor Breaker mentioned that a good percentage of our people live in Calgary. Well, that's quite a bit of our population. Maybe not large compared to the general population of Calgary, but it's large to us. And we have that nation-to-nation relationship. So half, I would say, maybe just under half of 6 of them lives in Calgary. And we have a duty to them as well. What we're looking forward to doing, we're looking forward to creating an urban reserve strategy with the city of Calgary, like we've seen in Edmonton, like we've seen in Saskatoon, where urban reserves are created. Part of that settlement agreement, 19, is that it allows us to repatriate, I'll say repatriate, but it allows us to move on 115,000 acres of land, all within the province of Alberta, to convert that back to reserve. That's not a wishful number. That's a target. We're also given about 30,000 more acres in the Castle Mountain Agreement and our Descent Dam Agreement. The land was taken from us, so we were deprived from that. So approximately 145,000 acres. We're moving aggressively. We're wanting to move and buy that land, convert it back, not to put us in a strategic advantage, but like I said, to correct historical wrongs. Because this was land that was ours in the first place. The Canadian government, the federal government, didn't follow their own provisions in the surrender protocols. They were acting illegal. So when you talk to us about adding land and correcting land and repatriating, claiming back land, it's not, you need to understand it in that historical context, right? Before 1951, we weren't even allowed to hire. We would lose our status if we pursued higher education. My family alone, we have 4 doctors and 3 lawyers, except not my dad's family, but you know what I mean, right? We're taking advantage of the education, we're taking advantage of the historical shift. So when we talk about that, I just want to frame in that context. We're very serious about this. We're very serious about working with the city of Calgary, right next door, and it's the largest city close to us. But all of the counties, all of the mayors, looking to have that presence. We don't just want lip service. There's, I guess I could go on forever and talk. I won't. I just want to mention that part there. That's what we're looking to do. Looking to be a more active neighbor and a more strategic ally to everybody. So this line claim settlement is not the end of it. I think we have more legal battles to fight. You may have seen this in the news. We're in the process of an evidence collection campaign right now because of the study that came out in January of 2022 from the Canadian Medical Journal Association that First Nations and Indigenous people are triaged at a less urgent rate or are given less urgent care. It's a very real policy, very real practice. And I believe they analyzed, in that study, they analyzed over 11 million DR visits. And so it's not a small sample size by any means. These policies, these practices, they're literally costing us our lives. They're literally doing that. And so right now we're in the process of applying for a new police force. We just granted a new peace officer. We were just granted by Solicitor General a new peace officer program. And with that peace officer program comes fish and wildlife rangers. So we're going to be looking to enforce and protect our land. We just passed a trespass bylaw. We have an open RFP right now for a bylaw prosecutor because we were getting kicked back and forth between the federal authorities and the provincial authorities about who would come and prosecute us. Even though we have these tri-party agreements, even though we have these things in Indiana, that people just seem to forget, that people just seem to brush over because what are they going to do? Well, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're here. We're here to correct historical wrong. And we're not looking to put ourselves above anybody else. We're looking to put ourselves on the same level as other people. We're looking for the equality there, right? Canada is a great nation, and it's our diversity that makes us stronger. Well, don't forget about it in that diversity. Oftentimes we get brushed over, right? I like land acknowledgements, they're good, but that is not where it is. It's not just being politically correct, it's also being historically accurate. And that's something we want to mention. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Share any thoughts or comments?
I think just the opportunities that we have within the nation. I know we're here today to talk a lot about the ATM process and what that strategy might look like with all of our neighboring areas around us. And not to overlook the opportunities that we have on the nation as well. Right now, and going into the future, that the goal is always the economic development, trying to get our members to work, trying to get our members to live off reserve, to go back home for work, for education, for training opportunities. And I think at the end of the day, that's the goal. Right? We always want to be home, right? And I think I can speak for a lot of our membership that don't necessarily want to come to the cities and to the surrounding towns. And so I think the opportunities on the nation itself, the partnerships, we get the phone calls, there's individual corporations and organizations that want to come. But again, it always has to be that fair playing field as well, right? And I think just going forward, if we could develop more opportunities that exist within the nation as well, that would be very helpful for a lot of our nation members who just want to be home. That's my
No, I guess it's been a long time coming for us to gather here today. There's been a lot of work done over the past couple of years with relationship building with Indigenous communities and speaking to these land acknowledgements. These, I feel when we're invited to a lot of events from municipalities and cities, people read these land acknowledgements off the paper. They think, do they really know these communities, like where Treaty 7 was signed? You know the difference between the Blackfoots and the Socrates. A lot of times, just knowing the history. And myself, my colleague Susan here, this whole team, we're actually creating a branding and marketing campaign where we want the world to know who Siska is. And We're working with a marketing firm called Chatterstitch downtown, nice big office, to help show the world who we are. And, Calgary, all the surrounding towns, cities, I think it would be a major, for that, I guess that inclusion would be nice. Because we are the second largest First Nation in Canada, Treaty 7 West Side in Sixth Nation. I'm not sure if a lot of people know that. Just showing the world who we are. I know with events like the Calgary Stampede coming up, other events, hockey games, football games, whatever it is, our plan is to really market and just let people know who Six is. So that's a big project we're working on. If there's any opportunity for collaboration, we're open to that. We always have our guard up, but we're always willing to work together. So just want to thank the Metro Region here for having us part of this meeting. We want to move forward. We understand that there's progress there. And, speaking to the people living here in the city, I believe last I heard we had about half our population. So a lot of your voters are here in the city. But, that being said, it's an honor to be here.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry for being late. But I wanted to say that add to a list that everyone has added. I'm really glad that we're working on this relationship and that we're working together. And like someone else said, we need more than just acknowledging the land. And I'm glad that this will be a strong relationship. I can see that. I'm a couple of years older than these people on this side. So I was a little girl with my grandparents and participated in the Calgary Stampede till 1977, when my grandmother had to retire. And at that time, I think our only relationship was the Calgary Stampede. But now we've grown, times have changed, and I'm really excited about this new relationship that we're working on, and very thankful that we have Sam, our lawyer. He's not hired as our lawyer, but he's very knowledgeable, and we need that on our team. We have a variety of people. We have 13 of us, and we all come from a different background. I'm a registered nurse. I have worked for Alberta Health Services and Health Canada. I'm presently not nursing because of my physician in council, but we have a lot of people, like they said, about 3,500 that require services. Services are here, but sometimes they're afraid to access them. So I think that once they are comfortable and knowing that this is what we can do, they will take advantage of the services here. Because out there, we don't have the services that they can access. But they're always more comfortable when they see an Indigenous person. Like for example, in the hospitals, they have the liaison there. And I look forward to more relationships like that.
One more thing, sorry. Mayor Gondek, we really appreciate you coming out to powwow that we had a couple weeks ago. It was amazing. We had a lot of comments from the community members, and just in the powwow was attended. It was jumping. It was a great powwow, and a lot of people from Alberta and even the states came up to attend that powwow, and everybody was just surprised and just really glad that you came and showed us respect. We had some of our MLAs, one of our MLAs there, Joseph Chow, was there as well, and we have another powwow coming up in August. The dates are coming. We'll be sending an invitation to, we'll send it to you, Greg, or somebody on your team, that you can circulate among your members. We'd like to see you there. And if you confirm with us and have you attend, you can, Mayor Gondek was, she did the grand entry with us. For those of you who know how the grand entry is kind of like the first one that kind of started off. And, we had the chief, and all of us were there. And we had our dignitaries as well in that lineup. So we'd love to have you there. just repeat what we saw in last little bit. So that's coming up in August sometime. I think, was it usually the second week of August? No. Second week of August. So just put that on your radar now, an official invitation will be coming as well. Thank you. We love that. Yeah.
So I'll open it up to the board. Anyone interested in speaking, if you have a question you'd like to ask, or some thoughts you want to share on how engaged, we'll just open it up now. We have this open discussion. Comments or questions, and we'll wish to kick it off. Go ahead.
Just to make sure I was listening properly, but so what was your total population? Is it 8,000?
It's just under 8,000. It's actually closer to 7,800. I don't know how many babies were born this week, but it's about that. Okay. Just under 8,000.
And about half in Calgary?
Yeah, I've heard some people, our membership department said just under 3,000 are here in Calgary, various parts. We have a lot in the Falconbridge area of Calgary, and we have some down south as well. Yeah. But yeah, we're all over.
Any other regions of the region?
I live in Okotoks, but a lot of members live in Strathmore as well. So, and maybe I think half is off reserve. So maybe in that population, and maybe I misspoke. Half of our population is off reserve, but a big percentage of that, 50%, is in Calgary and surrounding. We have a lot of members in Washington, Utah. We have some in England over there. So we really are kind of all over.
And I heard second largest in Canada.
Second largest in terms of population and land base for now.
Oh, so I was curious about the land base.
The blood reserve is the largest. We're second largest.
Yeah.
But who, with that 1910, half, taking consideration, half was illegally sold. So we were, what we have now, that's only half of what we had in Southern.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Rick Thorne.
This will show my naivety, but you had mentioned writing the historical wrongs, and I've been doing some reading, so I'll acknowledge. What is resources that you would recommend that we be looking at?
Like in terms of like literature? And
yeah, like literature in terms of getting, I've read some stuff that I'm like, well, I don't know how accurate that is because I read it. So I'm looking for, some of that source of truth, I guess is the best way I'll put it. Of what would you recommend?
I would recommend looking at the Indian Act.
Okay.
Number one, look at the Indian Act, not just the Indian Act as it stands today, but it's developed pre-1951 and the attempts by the government to remove our status from us. And from our perspective, the battle has always been to deprive us of our culture, as we've seen in residential schools, and to deprive us of our education, of our political status. Even where if we pursue higher education, we'd be taken off the rolls. If we married outside of the tribe, we'd be taken off the rolls. It's always been a battle for our status. So I'd recommend looking at the history of the Indian Act and its developments right there. And then I also recommend, there's a lot of other books you can look at. Thomas King, who's a pretty famous author, wrote what's called The Inconvenient Indian. Hugh Dempsey, which is he's a local historian. He wrote the history of the Blackfoot Treaties, which is interesting. Is an interesting read as well. There's really no shortage of literature out there documenting. It's just having the initiative to kind of go out and find it. But that's what I would recommend. That's where I started.
Thank you.
Is that legislative history stuff. So.
Also, on the agenda item, talked about the MOU. I was going to speak on that. We still have elders who live that very disturbing part of this country's history. And they're still alive today. And, the books and whatnot, literature, and they're there on paper. But sometimes you'll really feel it and hear from words of those that survived. We have a lot of elders who share their story openly as a part of educating other communities. And one thing that we worked on, we work closely with the town of Strathmore, as mentioned. We have an MOU with the town. And that was a way of educating the members of that community. And a part of that strategy is we identified different sectors within the town limits. Talk about health, education, human resources, economics, sports. So all these and law enforcement, public safety. So a big part of when the 215 were discovered last year, weren't discovered, they were always there. Just that nobody believed us. We all knew. We had two residential schools on our land. That's how big we were. So all these stories you were seeing on the news, all these vast numbers, those were smaller reserves as one school. We're still working on getting our GPR work set up and done. We have identified at least 10 to 12 areas that we have to scan because there was original schools before that we bring skill to schools. So we're preparing for that. But so a big part of educating society, taking advantage of the resources we have now. Those are the elders. It's a lot of, we're still living. You know, you see different institutions, they have reunions and whatnot of other institutions. They're called alumni. Well, for us, they're called survivors of that in our institutions. So one thing we did with the town of Strathmore, with the town council and staff, we identified, we worked on a curriculum, 4 segments called Understanding 60 God. They take those because we can't share our story in one sitting, in 1 hour. It takes time to understand. And that's just skimming the surface. And part of that, and this is what I'm going to offer in our discussions in our MOU, was touring. There's very few residential schools that are still standing in Canada today. We have one of them. And once you walk through those halls, I'll guarantee your view will be different. We've done that with the town staff. We've done that with RCMP, Strathmore, Gleason, Zano. And now we're working with Strathmore Hospital. So that's one thing that I want to suggest in our MOU talks. That's one of the early activities that we want to offer. We'll give you a tour of where all the trauma happened. We'll take you to some dark places, that institution. So yeah, part of educating, reading is good, but to hear it from those, while we still have them, a lot of us have parents, grandparents that were in those institutions. They're not going to be with us in the future. We take advantage of that. And listen, you can take our word, but we weren't there. We feel it through that intergenerational trauma. But our parents, they're the ones who experienced it. Some are willing to share, some are shut down. We have a lot of healing to do. So when you see our members of any First Nations downtown, think about what, not only what they went through, but their parents and grandparents went through. It's not easy to just get over. That's one term that we hear. I wish it was that easy. So that's in this MOU discussions, maybe one of the activities is touring one of the very few residential schools that are so sad. That's on our agenda.
Thank you, Mike. And just along those lines of resources as well, so I also am the chairperson for Olson Community College. So Olson is, we offer our upgrading program and we offer post-secondary courses that are transferable to UOC, Mount Royal, the relationships with Mount Royal, UOC, SAFE, a lot of the big institutes. There we also have a library that has extensive books and resources that are available. We also have elders residency program, which just kind of began recently. So that's kind of access to elders if needed. So I can definitely get you in contact with our president there. We have big plans for an off-reserve campus here in the city to take place at the, like I mentioned, the 16th Avenue County Services Building. The long-term goal is that they are going to move out of that building and we are going to put up a satellite campus there. So hopefully we also developed our 6 knowledge courses, which are very unique. They tell the history and they're amazing classes, very hands-on classes. So hopefully the goal is to be able to offer those courses here in the city as well. So a lot of good things happening with the college, and again, we are located in the former residential school. So over the years they've shifted, I guess, away from the negative energy and moved towards positive. But again, we have some of our older members who won't set foot in the college, just because it brings back a lot of those dark memories and whatnot. And so I think now we're at a time where we want to just have a new campus and preserve the Indian residential school. But yeah, we have an institute there that's open for collaborations and open for anybody to come and take courses and access our resources.
Just briefly, Snodgrass, Mayor Pat Rivers, you just say you were listening in.
I was, yeah.
Good drive in.
Heard most of it.
Can you just do a very brief intro?
Yeah, thanks very much, Oki. Thanks for coming, and it's great collaboration and wonderful to have you folks here today and starting to work together a little bit more than we have in the past, so appreciate it.
So go ahead.
Quick question. Are there professional associations or networks? There's a Federation of Asian Canadian Lawyers, there's South Asian Lawyers, there's groups like that, Black Chambers in Calgary. Do you have specific groups like that where we could potentially tap into professional networks and profile? Because, right, people need to see more people that look like themselves in our institutions so that they're comfortable using them. But we also need to demonstrate the professional side of each nation. So is there anything like that?
Yeah, there's one for the lawyers in my American terms of my citizen. I think it's called the Indigenous, I was gonna say Indigenous Bar Association, but I think it's the Indigenous Law Society. I think. Drew LaFawn is a member of that. He's a partner at NLT downtown Calgary here. He'd be a good person to reach out to. He's an Indigenous lawyer. I don't know if there is an Indigenous Doctors Association. I don't even know if there's an Indigenous Dentist Association. Other than my family, I know. But I can ask, but I can find out. But I'm sure there is. There has to be. So yeah. But I do know for sure that there is the Indigenous Doctors Association, Indigenous Law Society. Yeah.
I'm really interested in your suggestions around what next steps might look like in terms of memorandum of understanding. So we've had some good discussions around, and I know the board has expressed a strong desire to start having that kind of discussion. And I appreciate you put some framework there around what might that look like. And so it sounds like you referenced the MOU you have with Strathmore. And Strathmore, sadly, is no longer part of the CMRB, but of course we're in close touch. rely on them for some context. But I wonder, I really appreciate the idea in terms of next steps of coming into a residential school full time. And then I wonder if there's an opportunity there for our teams, Jordan, your team, the administration teams behind the scenes, to start to actually speak in a little more detail of what that MOU may look like, and what the objectives are. There's a common MOU for CMRB, and then perhaps supported by specific individual municipalities as necessary. I've heard urban reserve as an important piece of that, KTR is an important piece of that. Are there other things that anyone around the table want to be included?
Yeah, Greg, thank you for bringing that up. It was something that I wanted to mention today. I feel great that we're having these discussions, and I'm heartened again with the conversation of you wanting to pursue an MOU. I was you mentioned that, referenced that, but from my perspective, well, to speak frankly and honestly, I think we just need time together. So a part of this would, from my perspective, is that in that time will bring education, understanding, and I think you mentioned walls and barriers. I mean, and again, I'll speak for myself. I have them myself of just not knowing how to pursue conversations, what to say, what not to say, in fear of offending or just the unknown. And these interactions for me really help in breaking those barriers down so that we can understand, we can attempt to help you heal, and whatever the future looks like. I think the MOU, from my perspective, needs that essence of time. And I really like that offer of the tour. I think from one perspective, but also just, and I don't know what it looks like, maybe it's help from Anne and her group, but just how we can best engage and have conversations. So in Cochrane's world, we've been with the Stony Dakota signed with the SETI program. And for me, as we pursue economic development initiatives together, really the learning and the positive that I've taken from that so far, and we're early on that journey, is just trying to understand culture and procedure and process, and just for me, it's really calming and helping me just have conversations with neighbors in real time. That, again, just from my perspective, taking away that fear in myself of what should I say, what shouldn't I say. So maybe that's my long-winded way of saying, I'm really happy to start these conversations and look forward to more, but I hope the MOU can provide space for that.
Jeff, I think there's an urgency to this. I think that we need to be willing to be bold, move forward relatively quickly, and obviously working hand in hand. Letting Siksika drive that process and make sure. But I also think we have a responsibility to do the learning on our own. I don't think, although from a partnership perspective, that's important, but it's on us to know the history. We need to spend some time doing that. But at the same time, I think there's some value in getting started. That's like we had a couple of discussions now, and at the same time, I guess I don't want to sprint ahead too far, but I think if we commit together to say this is important, it's important to us, it's important to our country, frankly, it's important to all of us. It's a moral imperative, I think, that we take some action here. So I guess that would be my perspective here, is I think we ought to move fairly with purpose and set our teams on actually doing work.
See, one thing when we started that MOU with Strathmore, it's not going to be our dog, but to be our dog. So what we did was we worked late that one night, part of it, remember. worked into the evening. We had a strategic planning. We brainstormed, and that's how we identified all these areas. So one sitting like this, to me, doesn't suffice, and then come back with the framework. It's got to be all of us. Like I said, it's got to be yourselves and your respective communities providing input on this. We already know, but we want to make sure that it's our document. So I'm going to suggest that we have a strategic planning session. Because we don't want to just come to bring a framework, give it to you guys vote on it, and that's it. Let's get everybody, all of us. Let it be our document. And how we're going to get that is we get on paper. We're location, if it's out here or we have a hotel in Kananaskis. You guys want to come out and we'll make a day or two out of it. I don't know how your schedules are, but that's something that if it's, we're serious about it. It's all about action. So we're only here for an hour. And, yeah, so that's going to be my suggestion is we strategize, have a strategic planning session, and we brainstorm. So it's our document, not our document, bring it to you, say sign this. That's what we did with Strathmore. Councils got together and we developed this MOU.
I think it's an excellent idea. Anyone have any feedback, thoughts on that? I see a lot of heads nodding around.
If you don't mind, I guess a question for myself to the board here, Metro Board. What other communities, First Nations and Indigenous communities are you working with? Are we the first in line kind of? I think a united approach with other members of Treaty 7, the Blood Tribe, Stonies, so are they at this table too, or is we kind of the first?
Can I say yes to both of those? And so yes, you're really the first to have. And we've reached out, we have had some other discussions, none I think are as far advanced as this. And so it's a great point. We need to be mindful that maybe some opportunity to do some bigger work with other nations as well. But this, you're also first.
I really appreciate your comments because I think that is the crux of, it's not mine, it's not yours, it's ours. I think that that language is important. And I think having those conversations around perspectives and language and terminology, what one word means to you and what it means to me can be two very different things. So if we don't have that conversation and understand the context in an MOU that we create, it creates that rub point and that conflict. And I think we have this great opportunity to try and not try, but to actually forge a new path of what partnership and relationship looks like. And I think doing it as an hour will be more impactful and more meaningful, which I think from talking with my other colleagues at this board table, that is something that's important to us. So thank you for those comments.
I guess one thing I've learned, and I want to share with you, is when I first took this role in this political life, I was 24 years old, but I had a lot to learn. And one of the main things I learned was when you're meeting with our people, our elders, society members, spiritual leaders, it's not a 9:30 to 10:30 kind of thing. I remember I sat with an elder, I thought I was only going to be there for 20 minutes. Ended up spending dinner there. The history of about 3-4 hours. So just keep that in mind. Like, when our people, those protocols, whoever we bring to the table, it's very unique. So just be prepared that there's no time limit, but out of respect, we'll always work within it. Some elders, if you're going to talk to an elder, just be ready to talk for a long time. They got a lot to share. Just know that it's not, they're not they don't want to tell you their life story, but just the way things are. So just, and FYI.
I welcome that. I look forward to that very much. Yeah, we do have a lot of that's a question. I think doing something together, I agree with that is just the objective. So, anyone else wish to share anything? Move on to, so I think our next steps then are pretty clear. It's work together to find an opportunity to co-create something. Pretty clear marching orders here in terms of what's next, continue to amend with. And just wanted to offer on behalf of all the members of the Calgary Metropolitan Region and all the teams behind and citizens and just myself personally, it's been a good start. I think we'll call it a start. Perhaps we're getting near the end of the beginning, to borrow a phrase. But I think what I've seen here from this group, what I've heard is a strong commitment to moving forward and working together, finding the right balance between taking the time necessary to do it properly, to listen and learn, but also not to let that find the right balance there between making sure we're doing it properly, but actually making sure we're doing it. That we have a commitment of ours to do that. So again, sincere thanks for joining us here today, and we look forward to coming to visit. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. So why don't we take 5 or 10 minutes?
This conference will now be recorded.
A little longer than we might have anticipated. So that means our final 2 agenda items being the discussion around in-person versus online board meetings, and then the data and deal data discussion. We're going to defer that to a future board meeting. We now have 3 motions for us to pass that go back to the open session. We didn't, after our friends from Siksika joined us, did not move or pass the motion that the board reaffirm its commitment to pursuing a memorandum of understanding with Siksika Nation. So moved. So moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Hanson. Is there any discussion on that motion? No discussion, the motion or opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next is the motion I wrote down on my other piece of paper. What's that?
You just receive information.
Receive information, yeah. Here it is. So, motion that the board receive for information and discussion about the minister's proposed changes to the growth plan and the rep. That capture.
So moved.
Mayor Janung, so moved. And Mayor Snodgrass, second. Any discussion on that motion? I'm sorry, Shelley, I've done twice to you now. Motion of the board receive for information, discussion about the minister's proposed changes to the growth plan and revenue. Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? It was moved by Mayor Janung. Hearing no discussion, anyone wishing to oppose that? Seeing none, hearing none, that carries. Thank you. And the last is a discussion on the board chair goal tracking and self-assessment. That board received for information a feedback to the board chair on performance and request to update goals for 2022. Sound good?
Sounds
Golden
great.
seems enthusiastic about moving that motion, I see. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hanson, thank you. Discussion on that? Seeing that, anyone wishing to vote opposed on that motion? Thank you. That would be.
It's not on camera, right?
No.
I did that once in the legislature. Awesome.
Okay, so we are going to adjourn the next 2 agenda items as I noted, bring them back at a future board meeting. Our next board meeting is scheduled for Friday, the 27th of May. We're having a difficult time aligning everyone's schedule with that. We're either going to ask you to send a designate or perhaps to find another time.
We're going to actually try to go to the Royal Hotel, which is close to the airport, because I know some folks are flying out. And we're gonna, that's what we're gonna try to do, but stay tuned, we'll get you more information.
Right. So Shelley's gonna take that.
I will have a designate there because
Okay.
I'm in a meeting that morning, so I will have not.
So if we can get a critical mass, we'll have a meeting if it needs to be rescheduled. Schedules are always difficult to find. It is tough. Also looking at having a June board meeting. So Shelley's gonna work with the teams on that. Next land use servicing committee is next Thursday, 5th of May online. Governance committee, Friday, May 13th, also by GoToMeeting. With that, and motion for adjournment.
Do it, Ted.
Snodgrass, Miller, sorry, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
That's okay.
Yeah.